Welcome to today's academic success workshop on the topic, A Time for Time Management. My name is Jamal Washington, and I'll be leading this workshop experience today. So to get started, I want to go ahead and introduce some of the qualifications that I'm going to hold in leading today's presentation. So again, my name is Jamal Washington. I'm an academic coach with the Fresno State SupportNet program. I've served in higher education for over 16 years, and I've enjoyed leading students to success. I love the work that I do, and myself, I am a returning college student, and I'll be working on my master's degree starting this fall semester. And I really enjoy that because it allows me to be able to talk about today's topic of time management from the perspective of a professional and the experience I have leading students in that role. I'll be able to speak from the experience as a student, and I'll also be able to speak from the experience of someone who's just trying to manage time outside of those two identities as well. Today's targeted learning outcomes include providing guidance into how to begin planning, structuring, customizing a system of time management that's going to lead to increased productivity, efficiency, and a work life balance. I also want to help build various support systems and software that are going to help to examine how we can gain more and utilize them to reinforce accountability when it comes to time management. And last but not least, I hope to lead a gained experience in identifying time priorities, mapping out a weekly semester schedule, and this is going to include things such as a class, study schedule, family time, and work hours. So, when it comes to the conversation and the process of managing time, one might want to ask, where do I begin? And in discovering where to begin when it comes to time management, the best approach to start that process is to let it all out. What are the things that you're trying to create time for within your day to day responsibilities? And when you think about those things, it's going to be best to take out something to write with and write these things down. In many of the virtual and in person workshops that we've conducted, I've taken some time to get to know exactly what the students' responses are to this very same question and analyzing what are the things that we're trying to create time for within the day to day responsibilities. Um, so, in this semester's virtual workshops, I've posed this question. I've used Poll Everywhere or even the features within Zoom to kind of gather what the responses are from students. And here's what some of those responses have looked like for this particular question. I've also taken the time to ask audiences, considering the students that you know, what are the factors that you know to negatively impact how they manage time? So, in observing what's going on with the peers, I've also been able to collect these types of responses from my audiences. So, taking in those responses and those factors that lead to struggles with time management and the considerations we have to take into account when it comes to managing time, one important starting point is to remember that we all start each week with the same 168 hours total to try to maximize and get the most productivity out of our work week and out of our outside of the work responsibilities and commitments. So, following on that notion, it's important to know that time management is going to start with knowing yourself, knowing your schedule, knowing your commitments, knowing your priorities, knowing your peak time of productivity, and your counterproductive tendencies are going to be a couple of the things that can help you to really start to identify a success strategy when it comes to time management that works for you. It's an important first step in managing time to prioritize, then organize. So, when it comes to all of the commitments, all of the things on our calendar, you want to establish what are the highest priorities that require your time, and you want to rank those things in order of importance. Use that to put together what it is that you know about each item and organize your schedule so that your prioritized time and the amount of time you can commit is reflected in your priorities. To have a realistic look at time management with some of these recommendations, we've put together this scenario and it's going to allow us to evaluate some themes when it comes to time management. So we have a sample student here who has their fall 2020 schedule. their fall 2020 priorities, the top 5 of their priorities, and a work schedule that we want to take into consideration to create time management. In evaluating the priorities that are listed here for the sample student, there is a mention of wanting to earn a 3.0 for the fall semester classes, which include 15 units of coursework. The second priority is to spend at least 6 hours of quality time on a weekly basis with friends and family. The third priority is to get 20 hours of weekly work completed, so work hours. There's a commitment to 90 minutes of exercise every day. And the fifth priority is to get 8 hours of sleep during the week. So, with those top 5 priorities and the class schedule, which is going to indicate times where there's a commitment, and a work schedule that Monday through Friday is going to have a regular schedule of work hours, and the option for overtime hours and pay, we want to factor in what this schedule looks like and where we may have some difficulties or things that we need to plan around. So, utilizing this weekly study schedule that we can access from our SupportNet webpage, we were able to map out this sample commitment schedule and class schedule to look like what we see here. Now, notice that we've color coded each requirement that was indicated as a priority or a commitment for the fall semester. So, this is about as close as it gets to what the fall semester is going to look like. Um, in evaluating this schedule, what are some of the items that stand out to you? In the work that we do with academic coaching, some of the important factors that go into managing time is trying to have some flexibility where there's personal time or there's an opportunity to adjust to some of the curveballs that life can throw you at the last minute. So, this is something that we need to have space to do. And with this schedule, there's not too much open time on Monday through Friday in particular to make adjustments. So this might mean that there's some things that need to happen and some serious evaluation of what can be cut back on. So one of the first things where there's some opportunities to cut back is possibly on the commitment to the gym. This is a out of the priorities that are listed in the schedule. This is something that can probably be scaled back to a degree and allow some additional open time for a meal, because on Tuesdays and Thursdays there is no lunch hour. So that gym time can provide an additional hour where maybe we move breakfast time or study time into another spot and are able to find a lunch hour. Or there may be some time before work to relax, to change. If there's a commute from class or our workspace, uh, then we have a additional time to do that. If there's a need to change clothes, take a shower, we have more than just 1 hour to do that. And it doesn't allow our entire day to be full of haste and running from one thing to the next. Also, when we look at the weekend, there's open time there. But the most important thing that we want to focus on when it comes to creating balance, the number one priority was that 3.0 GPA for the fall semester. So on this bottom line of the weekly study schedule, you have the number of units, and notice the number of hours that are indicated for the study hours. As a college student, the general rule of thumb is to have a 2-to-1 study ratio, which is going to recommend that you want to multiply the number of units each semester times 2 to calculate how many recommended study hours should be accomplished on a weekly basis. So that 2-to-1 ratio is going to indicate 30 study hours outside of class time for the 15 units that are scheduled for fall semester. If, for example, our scenario student here was a STEM major and had science and math courses or upper division science and math courses, that would go towards a 3-to-1 study ratio based on the level of expertise and specialization in those majors and courses. So a 3-to-1 study ratio in that scenario would mean that the same 15 units would require 45 study hours outside of class time. We also have an account for the 20 work hours per week and the 6 study hours as indicated in the goals. So you can see on Saturday, there's 6 hours blocked out for social family time, but maybe there's no lunch. And so you see the gap in time between breakfast and dinner and what that may mean for where we can schedule a lunch in there in between gym, or maybe there's the option to split the family time. But again, the 30 study hours based on that priority list is priority number one. And in looking at the purple blocks of study time, there's nowhere near 30 hours of study time throughout the week. So that is going to mean that some of the blank time here needs to be filled in. But what happens when the tendency to want to make more money and work that overtime that's listed on the study schedule factors in? Now, this open time becomes something where maybe that immediate pay and takeaway from working overtime and making time and a half pay is valued more than the study time. And this is where our issues and challenges when it comes to time management become conflicted on a number of different levels. So, when it comes to time management, the discipline, the ability to evaluate the schedule and make those tough decisions early are going to create flexibility and create clarity in how we need to work and organize our commitments in order to be able to meet that need. And realistically, if it's early enough in the semester, maybe there's the option to not take 5 classes, but really focus on 4 classes. Imagine if this evening class or this later afternoon class on Tuesdays was not in that block. This would allow some flexibility for a lunch hour, an additional 2 study hours per week, maybe a reduction in the number of study hours because now there's less total units, and things may work a little bit easier if that was something that was explored. So again, in order to make that change, it has to happen earlier in the semester. So the time management in regards to the time to add or drop a class could really factor into how we create balance for the 16-week semester. Now, in addition to evaluating that schedule and the breakdown of conflicts and potential conflicts that we want to plan around when it comes to time management, there's also the notion of taking into account the tendencies. So, evaluating these tendencies here can be something in addition that we want to factor into time management. What if there was a tendency to oversleep and there's a struggle as a result with early morning commitments? What if there's often studying while periodically checking social media and text messages to stay connected to friends and family? How does that affect the outcome of the dedicated study hours? What might need to change for that tendency? What about the tendency to lose track of time when in the company of good friends, family, and conversation? How might that throw off a schedule as busy and back to back as the schedule we just saw? What about the tendency to black out at the gym and try to walk away with visible gains? How might that impact time management when on some days there's class that follows shortly after the gym? What if there's the tendency of procrastinating or putting off the more time consuming assignments and projects? And there's this reliance after doing that to have high pressure deadlines and all night study sessions. What about the tendency to get wrapped up following sports, binge watching TV shows, connecting with friends in the online gaming community? How might that work against the available time that we saw in this scenario? And last but not least, what if there's the tendency of letting friends and family throw unplanned events and responsibilities into the day? With all of these tendencies and taking these into consideration early, these are factors that need to be talked about and addressed in order to put together a structured system of time management that's going to work. This is why no two patterns of time management are going to work, because it takes into account the personal responsibilities, the personal commitments, the personal tendencies that factor into how our time maps out over that 168 hours of our week. So, in looking at this here, this is the first step, creating a system where we can start to evaluate what our commitments look like, doing something on paper or something visual where we can start to analyze what we have on our plate, and start to make the decisions that are going to make our time connect with our priorities, with our outcomes that we're targeting with the time that we're allotting for each of our priorities. College student success with time management can be enhanced through effective support systems and adequate planning. So, as you saw with our scenario here, it's important to have those support systems in place. We're going to talk about some support systems that can factor into managing time and think about how these things may help the scenario we just looked at, as well as the adequate planning. So we want to start with some of the systems that don't seem like systems. A desk calendar, especially in this time of virtual learning, a desk calendar in your workspace or in your home study space is a great visual organization tool that resides on the desktop and allows for you to proactively map out deadlines, appointments, priorities on a given month. So you can have a month at a glance right on your desktop. Another tool for time management is going to be a whiteboard or a cork board. Again, this is another great visual organization tool, and you can post reminders, you can map out your week, you can coordinate responsibilities to aid a more efficient process of time management. In spaces where you're working and trying to commit to all your obligations and you share space with roommates or you're in a space with family, this is also a communication tool that can help delegate and have more efficient time management for day-to-day tasks like grocery shopping, doing laundry, running errands. This can communicate to the others that are in your space that are connected to you how we can work efficiently, and this is the schedule that we have coming up. A planner is a timeless organization tool that features a variety of user customizations now. So with Google, you can download a template for a planner that doesn't require you to have to go buy a brand new planner when you run out of pages. So a lot of customizations include versions with motivational quotes or images or positive reinforcement to keep momentum going in how you manage time. A planner is a great tool, especially for those who've used them before or just need a quick reference point for what the day beholds. A calendar app, this is going to be a standard built-in feature of a lot of different devices today. So this is going to include our laptop computers, some desktop computers, cell phones, and even tablets. So as cell phones come and our electronic devices come equipped with calendar apps, it's important to use that feature when possible to input dates, deadlines, reminders, alarms, alerts, notifications, and things that can serve as a form of digital reference and accountability. And last but not least, we have the human support systems, our peers. So this is going to include teammates, classmates, roommates, coworkers. They're all connected to our success in one way or another. And we can benefit from this connection and find success. So considering partnerships with our peers is critically important because our success is connected to them. And this is going to allow us to stay on time, stay on track, and be able to lean on somebody when we need an additional support. The same can be said of family. Our investment in college, a lot of times, is a family investment. So it's beyond ourselves. Leaning on family, and even this more outside of the linear definition of family, is something that allows us to have support. So if we need somebody to look after a sibling, which would typically be a responsibility for us, having that conversation, making that arrangement with family could be something that gives us flexibility to be able to do more in the time that we have. I also want to talk about some software. This is another additional feature that can enhance how we manage time. Some of the best software that I can recommend from a personal level is going to be Google Calendar, which allows for us to input all of our commitments on a day or a weekly or a yearly basis, and then put in detailed information. We can attach links, we can set reminders and notifications. There's a wealth of features with Google Calendar, and this is a free software. So this is going to work on any device. You can download the app to make it even more accessible from a cell phone or tablet. But this is going to give you the freedom to really see what you have. You can color code your calendar so things stand out and stay on track with what your day, your week, your month holds. and have the notifications and reminders that create that digital accountability. There's also the My Homework app, which is a free app, and it's available and accessible on all devices, Android and I devices. And My Homework, the free version of this software, is going to allow you to have the ability to track assignments, track progress, projects, to track your tests, to track classes. You can set up due date reminders, and you can sync the information for your My Homework on multiple devices. So if you're using My Homework on a laptop computer, you can download and set up My Homework to also operate off of a tablet, to operate off of a cell phone, and you can have it synced to where the same information is accessible from each of those devices. Last but not least, there's the Exam Countdown Lite, an excellent software that allows you to set deadlines for upcoming exams, but also homework assignments, all types of things where there's a commitment and then there's a time frame when it has to be done. The software is free and accessible on all devices, so it works on Android and I devices, including tablets, laptops, cell phones. So this software is something where you can visually see what's coming up, and the countdown meter will count down when something, the deadline for an item is due based on the minutes, the hours, the seconds, and it's constantly counting down. You also have customizations that allow you to choose the colors and the icons that represent each item that you add to your countdown list. Last but not least, I want to introduce an article that was available in the Lifehack webpage. And this is going to feature 18 of the best time management apps and tools. So if you have additional time or you're looking for some digital software that's going to allow you to be able to follow priorities, set some productivity software in place to help you stay on track with your commitments, I highly recommend checking out this website here. It's been updated for 2020. So you're going to have 18 of the most recent, highly rated software for time management and productivity. So a couple of additional tips here when it comes to time management. Calculate study time by following that 2-to-1 study ratio we talked about earlier, which is going to mean that there's 2 hours of study for every hour of class outside of class. And this is on a weekly basis. Use that 3-to-1 ratio when it comes to STEM courses, science, technology, and mathematics. You want to use that 3-to-1 ratio for those courses or those majors. Also, you want to account for time spent on the entire writing process rather than an estimate for how much time it's going to take you to type or what your typing speed is. This is a common mistake made when it comes to time management in regards to writing. So when it comes to the time management estimates and giving ourselves enough time for a writing assignment, take into account the time for gathering your research, to do a peer review, to work with a writing tutor, to go through that revision process and present your best work, not just finished work. You also want to consider making progress on bigger tasks by breaking them into smaller, manageable chunks. So let's say you have a 10-page paper and you know about this paper and you're thinking about it over the course of weeks, and it gets to a few days or even the night before, and now you're starting the 10-page paper. That feeling of getting to that night before can be overwhelming because it doesn't allow you to take advantage of all of those additional steps we talked about for that entire writing process. But if you break that process into smaller chunks and work on that paper 2 pages at a time, you can work to where you make so much progress, you're done with the paper ahead of time, and then you can go through all of the additional steps so that, again, your time towards it is effective, but also you're turning in your best work and not just finished work. If you have a course that does not meet in person, so an online class that posts information for you to read or something to review for an exam, and it's accessible for a number of hours, or it's just posted and it's available, or you have an independent study course that doesn't actually meet in person, these classes can become out of sight, out of mind. And the focus is on what we actually have to take care of, where we actually have to be. Don't set that up because that can set you up where you're way behind because of that out of sight, out of mind. Create a class time for those courses. Create a designated time on the schedule to commit to that class and the work that needs to happen to be successful in that course. Start studying for any exam that you have coming up at least a week in advance. And if it's a cumulative exam, you want to give yourself even more than a week to review, because in our semester system, that's 16 weeks of information. You want to give yourself adequate time to review, organize your notes, and have the best ability to recall information from week 1, week 7, week 10, and be at your best. And the last two additional tips here: review all new information that's introduced in class within the first 24 hours that you're initially introduced to it. Our long-term memory retains information at its highest and stores it in our long-term memory when we see new information a second time within that 24-hour window. So that 24-hour rule is critical. And think about how this plays out when it comes to things such as names. We meet a lot of new people, and when you meet someone and you have a new name that you're connecting to a new face, if you see that person again within 24 hours, you're going to have a greater ability to remember the name connected to that face. But think about the same thing that happens when you see someone, you get to know a name, and you don't see them again for a few weeks. The face is familiar, but the name is vague. And we don't want that to be the case with new information introduced in class. As we get closer to exam dates, the information is familiar, but our connection to the answers is vague. So get that second exposure to any new information within that 24-hour window to help it store into the long-term memory. And last but not least, make that downtime as productive as possible. Downtime is important. So make sure you have time for rest, relaxation, sleep, laundry. But also, as we saw earlier with the scenario we looked at, downtime allows you to have flexibility when life throws you that curveball. So if you get a flat tire, or something happens to your laptop computer and you need to make time to get it repaired, this allows you some flexibility so you're not always working to be right on the minute with submissions, with arrival for an interview or anything like that. You have some flexibility to take care of those curveballs and still be on time and still be able to present your best self um, when it comes to the unexpected. So to wrap up today's workshop, I have two prompts that are going to be critical. We went over a number of steps. We went over a number of ways to structure. We went over a number of software and ways that you're going to customize time management so that it works for you. This is a custom fit. So no two methods that work for this person is going to carry over and work for this person. So it's all about customizing your time management system and your time management routine to what's going to work for you. So I want to pose a question that's going to be critical. It's also going to be reflective of that 24-hour rule we just talked about. What are the changes that you're going to make from here to improve time management? And then what can you do tomorrow to reinforce today's information? With that, I want to invite you to definitely take advantage of this resource of time management, and also SupportNet. If there's any way that we can assist in structuring some time management strategies for the semester, feel free to reach out to us. Our information and email address will be available at the end of this video. Thank you for your time.